Joey, look at this photo. Fantastic. What the hell is on his head? Hey, Bern, look at this photograph. Every time I do it, makes me laugh.
It's just your wife, mate.
Well, yeah, but like it's how it reminds me of what I really am.
What?
Well, it's not like I didn't know that. I swear I love her, and I swear I still do.
Wait a minute.
It's just too bad. It's too late.
Are you quoting Nickelback? Let me see that shirt.
No, Bern.
Let me see that shirt.
You don't want to see this, Bern.
Let me see that fucking shirt.
Oh,
Yuck. It's a Nickelback shirt. What is wrong with you, mate?
I've got a problem, Bern.
Oh, dude, we need...
Stop.
It's all right. I'm here to help. Let's take you into music rehab.
Oh, thanks for dropping me off, Bern. I really feel as if you're supporting me.
Yeah, look, get out.
Oh.
I'm sick of listening to this CD. Take your crappy CD with you.
All right.
Who spends $20 on a Nickelback best-of?
Oh, hi everyone. My name's Wade, and I'm a Nickelback fan.
Hi, Wade.
It started as just a mix on Spotify, and before I knew it, I bought the best of. Oh, I just hope I can recover from this.
How hard this was to research and try and sound genuinely like I was doing work. I don't
Sci-gasm. Hey, mate.
What's going on, dude?
Not much, dude. What's happening?
The usual.
The usual?
Sciencing and fathering and
The boring stuff.
hanging, watching a bit of TV.
Oh, yeah. The
World
exciting
Cup's
stuff.
happening, all that kind of
Yes,
shit.
Can't wait. Well, I've been getting into ice hockey a little bit recently.
I know, fucking hell. You keep telling me about it.
Go Bears!
I'm sure every conversation we've had has always started with, did you catch the game?
So, the reason that I got into this was this episode, and as you're aware, it's why you love to hate Nickelback. There's some serious science behind it though. And so I was at the game, and my wife and I were watching the game. The game finished. Bears won. Go Bears against the Mustangs. And so as the players were coming off the ice, they're playing Nickelback, and I said to my wife, "I love this song." She's like, "Oh, what?"
Yeah, your wife was right.
Nickelback are fucking dreadful. And I was kind of saying, oh, look, I don't think they're that bad. Like, I read a lot of negative stuff about them online and stuff like that. And look, I'm putting it out there. I don't mind their music, okay? I'm not their number one fan.
Glad you're the one putting that out there.
Exactly. See? The public opinion.
Nickelback are shit. I'm sorry.
I remember a message to say, hey, I'm going to do an episode on Nickelback. And you've gone, I will make my thoughts very clear on this on Monday of how shit they fucking are and how shit this study is. So I had a look online, and I started, because I noticed that, there's like, look, there are a couple of things that you cannot say that Nickelback aren't. And that is, one, they sound like the CDs live. Okay, so they're obviously good at recreating what they're doing live. No, I'm serious. No, listen.
Yeah, Red Hot Chili Peppers, one of my favourites, are not good live.
No. So in comparison, say, Nickelback, their CDs to what they sound like live, well, they are better at replicating
Can't
what they
believe we're
sound
doing a
like on
fucking
CD.
episode on Nickelback.
It's not the whole episode, people. Keep listening. There's
Yeah, we've already lost half our listenership. We're doing an episode on Nickelback. Click.
Anyway, so there's a lot of things that they do. They've been they've won over 25 awards, okay? They've
Self-nominated, no doubt.
self-nominated, yeah. 2 American Music Awards. These were like favorite rock group, favorite pop rock album, 7 Billboard Music Awards.
Oh, slow year.
Yeah, I know, yeah. But it's not only that. It was in 2002 and 2006. So that's a 4-year gap. And as you know, in the music industry, 4 years is quite a long time to win the amount of awards. And they
That's
won
fair.
Group of the Year, Hot 100 Group of the Year. They won that again for all the right reasons. All the right reasons. Got Rock Album of the Year. They've won 12 Juno Awards, which is like the Canadian kind of ARIA Awards, which you have here, which is like their national awards. They've won 2 MTV Video Music Awards and been nominated for 6 Grammys. So they're obviously doing something. And as well, they are the highest selling international band, other than the Beatles, okay, from foreign band in the US. They've sold over 50 million albums.
That's a lot of asterisks you've got on that.
What do you mean?
For the year between 2000 and what was it, 2010?
2000 and 2010, I believe.
2000 and 2010.
Well, the
that is
only
foreign. That isn't the Beatles.
I'm just saying, that's an impressive feat. Yeah,
I guess so.
50 million albums sold.
I think it's impressive the Beatles are still selling. That's cool.
That's how it's a testament to how awesome they are.
Yeah.
They've sold all these albums, but you ask someone about Nickelback and they fucking hate them. And it's really interesting. And it got me... So I looked into this paper that was done by this Sally Antonen. And she was a Finnish PhD student. And so she actually looked at Nickelback reviews from 2000 to 2014 in the Finnish media. And not only just... not just the media, but also people's reviews of their albums and stuff like that. And so she looked at this range of people and all these different reviews. And what they found was, it was really interesting because she saw that the public, or I'm not sure, the researcher, I don't know, they're Finnish, saw that the public perception had actually changed over time. And get this research was published in the Metal Music Studies journal.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And
Get
guess
right
what
into metal in Scandinavia.
Yeah. So hence probably why I got published.
Yeah.
And the title was Hypocritical Bullshit Performed Through Gritted Teeth. Authenticity Discourses in Nickelback's Album Reviews in Finnish Media in the... Yeah. How good's that? It's like, fantastic.
Oh, that is awesome.
So then it got me kind of thinking, well, what is it about Nickelback that, people don't like? And what they found was there was a couple of things.
It's the music, mate.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things that the reviews showed was, and this is a great quote from the paper, Nickelback is too much of everything to be enough of something. They follow genre expectations too well, which is seen as empty imitation. So they're too kind of... they're too rock and roll appearance that it's kind of, we're just doing this to sell records. And this is what we sound like. So you listen to their albums, they're actually quite heavy albums. They're much heavier than a lot of kind of rock bands who are in the mainstream at the moment. And all this type of thing got me thinking, what is it about public opinion that shifts? So what are the factors that led to everyone slowly... hating Nickelback? And you can say it's their shit music,
They're too stereotyped.
They're too stereotyped, and as well they don't have that that purity about their music. Like, they've sold their songs to furniture commercials and things like that, which obviously, if you're
They've
a reviewer,
never once gone into rehab.
and never once gone to rehab, they sing songs about drinking beer, stuff that AC/DC sings about, sleeping with women, doing things to women. And people don't like that, yet they'll happily listen to AC/DC. I'm not saying Nickelback are on par with AC/DC. I love AC/DC. They're one of my favorite bands. Okay, but it really kind of got me thinking about what actually got Nickelback from this band that was full of all these accolades and one of the highest selling bands of the noughties to being just hated by everyone because
To being a joke. They're a bit of a joke.
Yeah, well, in fact, this is what actually the paper says. Nickelback is too much of everything to be enough of something. They follow genre expectations too well, which is seen as empty imitation.
Yeah.
But also not well enough, which is read as commercial tactics and lack of a stable and sincere identity. So
Yeah,
they're
I see
almost,
that. I do see that.
So they're almost too good and just targeted.
I'm glad you got that.
No. No, they're almost like too good at being that rock and roll radio top 10 band that people are like, well, this isn't genuine. This is just a band trying overproduced. And in all honesty, it's funny because you listen to their albums.
That's never going to be a problem for us.
And you listen to their albums as time goes. And so that kind of got me thinking, all right, well, what is it about their music? And I thought, well, okay, they're tight live. Chad Kroeger has, regardless of what anyone thinks about him as a person, and I asked my wife what she thinks of Chad Kroeger, and honestly, this is what so he looks like he smells.
His name is Chad.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And so there's always other things. Oh, you just, that I like your pants around the feet and all that type of stuff. I'm like, well, hang on, but you love AC/DC and they sing similar lyrics. So I thought, well, maybe it's the way in which they look at lyrics. Now, it's kind of funny because I had to go through so much bullshit to go through the studies of, people looking at Nickelback, and like they're not even like the not very good studies. But
oh, really?
Yeah. Well, there was headlines, right? Now get this. There was headlines talking about the intelligence of Nickelback's lyrics, and it compared them with bands from 2005 to 2014.
Yeah.
And it compared their readability score from their lyrics. So it compared
language use and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it compared the biggest bands of that time, and it compared, say, Avenged Sevenfold, Linkin Park, Foo Fighters, Nickelback, and it actually found that Nickelback had an average grade level of 3.3, whereas Foo Fighters only had 2.62. Now, the media jumped on it and saying that Nickelback have the most intelligent lyrics in rock music. I'm like, look, I like their music, but that's not true.
Yeah,
I think we all know that.
I don't think they should use the word intelligent either.
No, so the study is flawed for a number of reasons. And you could easily manipulate the readability score of something. Okay, and the thing is...
It's like saying you're the least stoned at a Snoop Dogg concert.
Yeah. Yeah. But the thing is, with the study, it doesn't take into account, say, metaphorical meanings and things like that. Okay, so it doesn't take in that higher order kind of, all right, well, this is what they mean by this. So although, you might listen to the Foo Fighters, say they're fantastic lyrics about, whatever, and then you listen to Nickelback. But you can also as well, and this study was done, well, I would say analysis, I wouldn't call it a study, by Andrew Palmorse from Seat Smart. And you can actually alter the lyrics for different bands and their readability score by increasing the length of the sentence and commas. And as you know, really lyrics are just a poem.
Yeah.
Okay.
So put a bit of punctuation in there.
Put a bit of punctuation in there, and it really kind of beefs up the readability of it. So everyone kind of jumped on this thing saying Nickelback, for gimmicky reasons, they weren't serious. They weren't like, Nickelback's awesome. No one says Nickelback's awesome. In fact, I was scared even doing this episode. But it led me to, the bigger issue is, well, what are the factors that changed public opinion, and how can we accurately measure them? Okay, so you'll notice that the Finnish study, done by him, her, doesn't matter, they're a researcher, the PhD, the PhD student, and it got me thinking, well, they are obviously reviews, and when does public opinion sway that way, and what are the factors that lead people to be more prone to having that opinion and following that opinion? Because if I was to ask you, say, back in 2006 about Nickelback, you'd probably say, oh, yeah, they're all right. But now there's a public opinion, it's like everyone hates them.
I don't think I ever said Nickelback were all right.
Oh, well, yeah, here we go. Yeah, I'm old school, hate Nickelback.
Yeah, I hated Nickelback before they came out.
Oh, good, yeah. I hated Nickelback even before they were even a band, man. But the best part was about this whole thing was there was actually a Kickstarter started. And it raised $66. Okay.
It's a pretty shit Kickstarter.
It is a Kickstarter. It's a pretty shit Kickstarter. It had 14 backers at the time. Okay, this was at the time when the article was published. But some dude started up a campaign to keep Nickelback out of London.
That's a fucking great Kickstarter. I take it back.
It made
only
everything.
Get $66.
It made everything. It was fantastic.
Why are you raising money to keep someone out of a location?
What
are you going to do with that money?
I guess the best part was, right, the name of the Kickstarter campaign. It was Don't Let Nickelback. it raised, at the time of the article that it was written, I was reading, it had like $66.14 backers. I'm sure it would have got more money because the amount of media attention it got. But back to the original point was how can we use say things like social media to better analyze public opinion? And there was a study in 2010. It was titled "From Tweets to Polls: Linking Text Sentiment to Public Opinion" time series. So what they did is they looked at public opinion as measured from polls and then sentiments measured from text. So they looked at what people were saying about certain issues or politicians.
Yeah, okay.
And what words were coming up on social media. And what they found was, so they looked at it
This
from
study wasn't from like Cambridge Analytica or something, was it?
yeah. And it was measured by, Facebook users. No, it probably was, actually. And so they analysed like several different surveys on consumer confidence and political opinions between 2008 2009, so very well could have been. And they correlated the sentiment word frequencies and Twitter messages. The results varied across data sets. However, in several cases, the correlations were as high as 80%. And they captured important large-scale trends.
Okay.
So maybe that's, understanding public opinion. Maybe we need to go to social media where people, for some reason, who
are very comfortable giving their opinion.
Very comfortable leaving their opinion for everyone else to read, where they may not speak it in public.
Wow, okay.
And so that might be a good way in understanding public opinion. But then I started to see this is like a rabbit hole.
You have gone deep down a rabbit hole. It's definitely Alice. Yeah.
This started from I'm going to convince Bern that Nickelback are a good band. Like,
that would be a very long episode.
Very, very long episode with very little samples of music. Well, and that's the thing. Everyone, like, I was speaking to my wife who fucking hates Nickelback. Like, she's like, ugh. And I was saying, I'm going to do an episode. I'm going to talk about why public opinion is supposed to Nickelback. And she started like, just unleashing. They're shit. They're crap. He looks like he smells. He looks like the Paddle Pop line. I'm not sure if Americans, you have Paddle Pop. Do they have Paddle Pops over there?
I don't know. I hope so.
Look up the Paddle Pop line and then...
Oh, that is really good.
It looks like Chad Kroger.
Should do an episode with her. She's hilarious.
She's way funnier than me. And so, anyway, back to my original point. The whole point of the episode was to look at how public opinion changes. And we can actually use Nickelback as an example of how public opinion can sway and how we can look at reviews and social media and things like that to find out how public opinion shifts over time. And these studies were, like, for instance, that there was a high correlation between what was being tweeted and the opinion polls about, customer satisfaction, consumer confidence, I should say, and political opinions. So
wow.
We can actually determine through social media how public opinion is changing, which you think about is quite an obvious thing. But to get that kind of correlation of sometimes of 80%.
It's sort of quantitative.
Exactly. And then matching it up to an opinion poll, series and going, okay, well, this is what people are thinking. These are good indicators to see how public opinion is changing. And then I had a look at, say, the Pew Research Center.
Yep.
And in 2015, they found the main contributors to public perceptions usually are the following things. All right, so I kind of took Nickelback and I said, all right, well, why do people feel that way? And then is there a link between Nickelback and climate change and evolution and political preference? Or what Chad Kroger would smell like if you met him. As my wife says, not very nice. So what they found was there was kind of key factors: political party ideology, so what your party's belief on an issue is. Okay, so for example, looking at the US, because this is where the Pew Research is done, 71% of Democrats and independents, all right, who lean towards the Democratic Party, say the Earth is warming due to human activity, compared to only 27% among their Republican counterparts. It's obviously also no surprise that the Democrats are more into investing in renewable energies, where the Republicans are much more into
fossil fuels.
Fossil fuel driven, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So that was obviously a big point. And then there was generational gaps. So obviously they're often large and persistent. So, for example, older people are more likely to be in support of nuclear power as opposed to young people.
Oh, wow, that surprises me.
Younger people are more likely to accept that humans are responsible for global warming. Older people are more likely to see vaccines, such as the MMR vaccine, as safe.
Yeah, okay.
And younger people are more likely to believe that humans have evolved.
Oh, really? Okay.
So these generational gaps and I know we've done a previous episode on it, You're Not As Good As You Think You Are, where we often will see a group of people and we'll align our views to that before we really start thinking about them ourselves. So really, that got me thinking then, okay, that's fine, but how do trends change? Like, that's kind of saying, well, yeah, older people, young people, but how do we get those perceptions to change? Like, for instance, Trump was a massive outsider in the US election. I know that's been done, dusted, it's old news, but like, what leads to that shift in public? How can we have things even going back, within our grandparents' lifetime of millions of Jews being sent to concentration camps and, a range of other people, from different cultures, different backgrounds, different sexualities? How can we get from a somewhat peaceful society to just this huge clusterfuck?
How did we get from World War One to 20, 30 years later going, yeah, that was a good idea, let's do that again?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And these people are responsible for this.
Yeah.
So I had a look in Nature, and there was an article published in Nature from in 2013. Now, it's kind of interesting because they identify that there's a degree of socio and economic development, the religious beliefs, the full history, and many other factors undoubtedly all contribute to mold the distribution of opinions of people in society. So things like, your economic, economic development of your country, where you are on a social scale, so where you are on a socio-economic scale, your religious beliefs, obviously we're well aware of that. That's still around today. Unfortunately. But really, it actually looked at, this study actually was really interesting because they looked at statistical physics to try and understand how public opinion changed. Like, what are the determining factors that would help identify if there's these kind of extreme shifts in public opinion?
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing at the moment. We're seeing the left get further left and the right get even more right.
Seeing polarization.
We're seeing this.
Between
we're seeing
ideas.
This binomial distribution of political opinions. And so this study looks at, well, how do the social features, contribute to a collective mood? So interaction between individuals and all that type of stuff. So this study was done by Marlon Ramos. And it looked at, obviously...
Are they also gender neutral?
I think Marlon is a guy's name. I don't know, but let's just... It doesn't matter what sex they are, Bern. It doesn't matter what sex they are. All right. So, they looked at the non-linearity of... That's a fucking tough word to say. of systems. So, what they did is they applied these statistical analysis, and non-linearity systems kind of look at, they don't follow the standard thing. So in general kind of physics models, okay, if we double the number of particles, the energy doubles.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so that's a linear relationship, Okay. But what they're finding is that that's all well and good for simple systems. But when you're looking at, say, social interactions and systems, and there's so many different variables, you get a non-linear relationship.
Okay, so it jumps and swings and goes through exponential changes.
Yeah, it means
decreases
the input doesn't equal the output. Now, up until recently, not recently, but over the last few decades, scientists are now realizing, especially in social studies, that there's this non-linear relationship between a lot of things. The world doesn't work in a linear relationship. Okay, there's so many different variables, and even in physics, they're starting to look at these systems now and go, oh, hang on, this isn't as clear-cut as we first thought. For instance, you have a look at, say, quantum mechanics and a whole range of different things. And even looking at Newtonian physics, you can see that, just sliding a box along the ground, well, there's so many different things that you need to consider. Yeah. Okay, so we can have good estimates for basic systems, which have a nice linear relationship, say the Newton's cradle.
Yep.
Oh, we just... the little balls that
Backwards and
hit each
forwards, but
other,
eventually
back
it
and
slows
forwards.
down and stops.
Eventually slows down, stops. That's a really good system in understanding a linear relationship. However, that's not how social psychology works in public opinion, unfortunately, for us. So what they found was this onset of nonlinear behavior. So looking at, say, what we find is if the system doesn't start to make sense, what they're looking at doing is looking for warning signals. So it wasn't to kind of find out how do we determine if public opinion is changing. It was what are the precursors to these kind of extreme shifts in public opinion.
Yeah, okay.
And what they looked at, they found that this non-linear kind of behavior, so stuff that was going on that didn't make sense, so people weren't behaving in the usual way, or that bit of information would usually do quite well, leads to extreme views. And you have a look at, say, some of the stuff that Trump was coming out with. No candidate had said that in the past. Or actually, I lie. There had been a lot of... Sorry, my apologies. But no one had said that in
How he said
recent...
it as well
in
was-
Recent
Trump
times.
was very much a different kind of candidate.
Exactly. Especially, I know it's been said... I have to correct that statement. Similar stuff has been said in the past. However, this was a new playing field. This had social media, obviously fact checking and all that type of stuff. And it was a new platform by which this method could work. And obviously, they weren't predicting the public opinion to move in that way. So that would have been like a non-linear system. So what they're looking at is how do we better determine public opinion? And it's not to say, how do we stop people from voting for Trump or how do we stop people from voting Hillary, whatever. It's just saying, how do we pick these big shifts, these extreme shifts in public opinion? And one of the ways is detecting a non-linear system, so a system that doesn't make sense. And that's what they're saying. This may be useful in understanding how these extreme shifts in public opinion actually occur.
So a small catalyst can lead to these huge changes, and we want to know why.
Exactly. But another problem is, so if you have a look at like direct longitudinal statistics, so that's like going to the same people and seeing how their opinions change over time.
Like 7-Up or something like that. You
What's
remember
that?
that TV program or TV show 7-Up where they interviewed a bunch of kids at 7, what do you want to do with your life? And then they did it at 14 and then did it at 21. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think they're like 60 or something now.
Oh, wow. I never saw that.
Oh, great series. Yeah, check it out.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
cool. Well, those studies, kind of few and far between, obviously, because the amount of time and effort that it takes to get a study, and especially in the old publish or perish kind of academic world. We do have large transverse data, so things like opinion polls and stuff like that, which we can go off, but we do need more of this longitudinal statistics, especially when we're looking at how opinion shifts and changes over time and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, okay.
So, so that kind of, like, all that stuff, why so many people hate Nickelback
has some sort of influence over why people have or why society has these paradigm shifts on ideas.
Yeah. So
I feel like no one ever thought Nickelback was that good. Well, obviously they did. I suppose they're winning awards. Some critics thought they were good.
yeah, well, the critics, that obviously...
Clearly those critics lost their jobs and were replaced by more sensical people.
But it's interesting, isn't it? Like how public opinion can shift. And there's still, by the way, in regards to like this is really a sociology kind of thing with opinion shifts and stuff like public opinion. Still a lot is unknown. We know factors, but there's just so many factors that go into influence.
So difficult. So many variables.
So it's kind of one of those things where we really can observe the aftermath. If we collect data, then we can observe the aftermath of what's going on.
Hindsight is 20/20, they
yeah.
say.
So what do you think?
I still think Nickelback shit.
Yep.
I haven't
That's
changed my idea
fine.
of that.
Well,
But I
just-
think it is quite interesting that you can model the perceptions of a band and make it appropriate to public perceptions on science or politics or anything
Yeah.
like that. Or even you were saying the physics models. That trips me out a bit, that we can use ideas from social science to apply to models in physics.
Yeah. Well, it's the other way around. So it's the physics models to...
So they use the physics models and they do find non-linear relationships, and they're able to...
Look at systems and interactions between particles to look at... So it's very kind of experimental, but that's one way in which they're thinking, maybe we can model public perception the same as we model statistical physics. Maybe they follow the same rules.
I wonder if they could use a lot of things like patterns in nature to model patterns in I know they were looking at leopard spots and how they grow as a leopard grows, and they're able to use that to sort of model how pockets of crime appear in cities and things
Oh,
like that
wow.
as well.
Wow, that's
So
cool.
it is. It's kind of all related, these patterns.
Yeah.
These non-linear patterns, irregular patterns.
Yeah. So for our listeners out there, if something seems ridiculous and stupid, have a look into it a little bit more, because what you'll find is there's often there's a bigger meaning to everything, and
Except for Nickelback, that's shallow as shit.
it's nice that that's what you've got out. They're still shit.
Nickelback is still shit and Chad Kroger's stinky.
Now, there's no evidence of that.
Suspected of being stinky. Yeah. It's like a fart threw up on some burnt hair.
It's like the paddle pop line threw up on himself and then shit his fucking pants. Well, thank you very much for listening. You can follow us on social media, all the social media sites and stuff like that.
Make sure you leave us a review.
Yeah, leave us a review.
Unless it's a bad one.
Yeah, if you are a Nickelback fan, I'd love to hear from you because there's not many of us around these days.
You can start a support group.
And so thanks very much for tuning in. If you'd like to become a Patreon, please, you can visit us and log in and become a member at patreon.com/Sci-gasm podcast. All that helps us get to venues to interview people, to help kind of the live shows and all that type of stuff.
Get access to some exclusive content.
Some exclusive content, yep. And the main thing is though, you're just helping out the podcast, and we wouldn't be able to have the quality of show without the people. So we need more Patreons.
Yeah, thanks. Imagine how bad it would be if we didn't have Patreons.
Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't get quality entertainment like why Nickelback? Why you love to hate Nickelback?
Oh.
Thanks, guys.